I moved into the apartment a few months ago. It wasn't perfect. The wallpaper was peeling, the floor creaked with every step, and the smell of dust lingered no matter how many times I cleaned. But it was cheap, and for someone living alone, that was enough. Still, there was something about the building I couldn't shake. The hallways always felt too quiet, like the air itself was holding its breath. The strangest thing, though, wasn't my own place. It was the unit right next to mine. When I signed the lease, the landlord had pointed to the door across the hall and said, "That one's been empty for years. No power, no water. Don't pay it any mind." At first I didn't think twice. In fact, I liked the idea. One less neighbor to make noise, one less person to bump into in the hallway. But over time, that silence became unsettling. The door was always locked, always shut tight. Dust gathered around the threshold, like no one had walked through it in years. And then, about 3 weeks after I moved in, the noises started. It began late at night, always after midnight. At first, it was small things, a faint thud, like someone dropped something heavy on the floor. Then came the dragging noises, slow and steady, as if furniture was being pulled across the room. I told myself it was just the pipes, or maybe the building settling. Old apartments make strange sounds, but then I heard voices. Muffled at first, like a TV left on too loud. I pressed my ear to the wall one night and realized it wasn't television. It was crying. A woman's sobs, soft and broken, followed by something else. Children. Laughing. The sound chilled me more than the crying. It was high-pitched, playful, completely out of place in a place that had supposedly been empty for years. I asked the landlord about it the next day, trying to sound casual. He just shook his head. "There's nobody there. You must have heard something from outside." Thin walls. But that night, the noises came again. Louder, closer, and this time, I swore I heard my own name, whispered through the wall. The sounds didn't happen randomly. They always started when I was lying in bed, lights off, just on the edge of sleep. Almost like whoever, whatever, was in that apartment knew when I was listening. Sometimes it was just footsteps, pacing from wall to wall. Other times it was scratching, nails dragging across plaster. But the worst was the whispering. One night I heard my phone buzz on the nightstand. I reached for it. Nothing. No message. No call. But through the wall, I swear I heard someone chuckle, like they'd been watching me the whole time. The next day, I talked to one of the older tenants in the building. She gave me a strange look when I asked about the apartment. "Honey, no one's lived there since before you were born. They sealed it up after what happened." When I pressed her, she just shook her head and muttered, "Some doors are better left closed." That night, as I lay awake, the voices came again, clearer this time, and among them, a whisper, low, close, calling me by name. I couldn't take it anymore. The whispers, the scratching, the sound of footsteps pacing just inches from my bed on the other side of that wall. One night, around 2 a.m., I finally got up. Barefoot, heart hammering, I stepped into the hallway. It smelled of damp concrete and old paint. The door to the empty apartment loomed at the end of the corridor. Heavy, chipped, the number faded and crooked. I pressed my ear to it. At first, there was nothing. Then a faint rustle, like someone breathing. A soft scraping sound traveled across the floor inside, right up to where I was standing. I knelt down and glanced at the small gap under the door. In the dim light, I could swear I saw movement, a dark shadow sliding closer. Then I looked through the peephole. For a split second, I thought the apartment was empty, just darkness. And then, from inside that blackness, an eye looked back. I stumbled backward, heart slamming against my ribs. The peephole went dark again, but the breathing on the other side continued. The next night, the noises were louder than ever. It wasn't just whispers or footsteps anymore. It was pounding. Heavy, violent fists slamming against the wall I shared with that apartment. At 3 a.m., the sound moved to the hallway. I stepped out of bed and froze as the door next to mine rattled in its frame. Something was on the other side, pushing, banging, desperate to get out. The whole hallway echoed with the sound, the air vibrating with every hit. Then, suddenly, it stopped. A silence so heavy it rang in my ears. And then, from beneath the door, a hand slid out. Thin, pale fingers clawed at the floorboards, reaching into the hallway. I stumbled back, gasping, as the banging started again, harder, faster, shaking the entire door. I called the police. By the time they arrived, the noises had stopped. Together we forced the door open. The apartment was empty, no furniture, no footprints in the thick dust covering the floor. No sign of life at all, except for one thing. In the middle of the room, etched into the dust, were drag marks, long, deep lines leading straight to the door. The police left not long after, shaking their heads, muttering something about old pipes and my imagination. But I knew what I'd seen. I knew what I'd heard. That night I tried to convince myself it was over. I locked my door, double-checked the windows, and crawled into bed. For a while everything was quiet, too quiet. And then it began again, a faint whisper. At first I thought it was coming through the wall, but then I realized it was different, closer. The sound wasn't next door anymore. It was inside. I sat up, holding my breath. My apartment was dark, but I could hear it clearly now. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving across my own floor. And then, from the corner of the room, in a voice barely louder than a breath, I heard it. I'm here now.